we've built homes for like 6 or 7 different hospital employees. So they already knew us pretty well there from that end. That's one advantage of being in a small market is there's no need for advertising at all. I get called from Angie's Leads and all these people all the time. And I'm like, dude, I'm sorry, but you're not going to do any good. Everybody already knows who we are.
Well, very excited for the podcast today. We have Dustin Nielsen on. Welcome, Dustin.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, excited to have you on. So Dustin is owner, president of Nielsen Contracting, and probably like many of us, probably wearing a lot of titles and hats these days.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're a small company, so a lot of hats for sure.
Well, I think most of us tend to be a small company. I think people may look from afar and think we're big, but most of us are actually quite small, in comparison to other industries for sure. Where I want to get started, Dustin, I think your story is a little unique to a lot of the guests I have. The reason being is you're based out of Richfield, Utah. And for those that may or may not, Richfield is not, this is not a booming metropolis. You're kind of center of Utah. And speak to us just, I think what's unique about your market is it's very different than Scottsdale, from population and probably wealth and other things. And yet you're surviving, thriving, building a successful business. I think you can relate to a lot of listeners.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I love your podcast. I listen to it all the time, but I would say most people you have on are probably more from cities than where we are.
They are.
A lot of stuff definitely relates, and we try to introduce into our business, but on occasion, there's things that I'm like, well, that doesn't really work for us. So the town I live in is about 8,500 people. Our county is 20,000 people. We travel, roughly an hour, a few projects a little over an hour, but that's kind of our base of where we'll go. And if you were to circle Richfield, Utah in a 60-mile radius, the entire population is 60,000 people. So
that's crazy.
It's a really, really small market. And so, I mean, to survive, like you say, we're not just survive. I mean, we're thriving. I feel like we're doing great for where we are, but it's definitely, you have to adapt to the market. And, one way we adapt is a lot of people, and you hear this in your podcast too, like, do what you're really good at. And we certainly try to do that. But when you have such a limited market, you can't put all your eggs in one basket, right? So we have to diversify. So we have a commercial arm. We have a custom home building arm. We do a bunch of spec homes. We just try to fulfill whatever needs that we can to stay busy. And luckily, we've been able to do that.
What's interesting about your market now, the tie here, Dustin, I know you and I have spoken about it, but my grandfather, for anyone that knows my story, my grandfather retired from the Navy on the Leavitt side. He moved from LA to San Diego. He had 6 boys, of which my dad was the youngest. They were twins, my dad and my Uncle Ron. Long story short, he had his electrical company. I grew up working for that same company. My grandpa had retired and he moved to Aurora, which is right next to Richfield, Salina, right? You guys are all like 15 minutes apart, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We've built many homes in Aurora. It's a nice town. and so, yeah, we love building in Aurora. So, crazy the local ties.
Well, the funny thing is like I picture exactly the demographic you're working in, because as a kid, when I was like 10 or 11, we'd go visit them, and there's not much in Aurora. I'll tell you, Dustin. I mean, I don't know if it's changed, but when I was a kid, there had to have been like 800 people. Like, it is the true small town.
It's still that way. In fact, I would say there's probably less than there was when you were there. There used to be a store that shut down. I think they're down to a pop machine in Aurora. So they've got a good 20-minute ride to the grocery store and nothing else.
So again, I mean, this is for context. I mean, you mentioned that, yeah, it's easy to specialize in your line of work, find the ideal client and so forth. You're working in a climate and an area where the population is not high. You're doing commercial, you're doing residential, you're doing spec homes. When you are doing spec, let's speak about that for a minute. Where are your clients coming from? I mean, again, you're not doing this $10 million spec. You're doing something that people can afford and live in, and you still have to make ends meet for you. How are you finding the ability to be competitive and still find a new clientele that are moving into that, that area?
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, I think that even though we're small, we still face a lot of challenges that everywhere faces, right? Like, costs are so high. I mean, we hear all the time people want their kids to move back home is what you hear. And it's almost impossible because of the cost of homes. So we certainly, a lot of our specs, and we do a little bit of both, but a lot of our specs we try to go entry level home, for what someone can afford. And even still then, those homes are expensive. But surprisingly, there's still quite a few people that move here. Like, we have a lot of move-ins from California, from Arizona. Since COVID, when people could work on their own, there definitely has been more people drawn to the small town. And we don't have we have traffic lights, but we never have traffic. So there's a lot of benefits in living in a small town. So we do have growth for sure, even though it might be much slower than what most cities and what Scottsdale is. So there's definitely a need for entry level homes, but there's also a need for some nicer homes as well. Nothing probably to the level of what you do, but we build a few $1-2 million homes. We have a couple of subdivisions by the golf course in Richfield that do a little better, and then we build a lot of really small 3-bedroom, 2-bath entry level home that are just basic homes through the valley, and we've found a lot of success with that. Really, I mean, people want to move back, but they don't want to wait a year or 2 years to build, so but they want a new home, and we're able to provide that service. So we've sold every spec home we've built. We build roughly 30 a year, and able to maintain that pace.
So you're doing 30 spec homes a year?
We are, yeah, in Sevier County. Crazy to believe, but yeah. So one advantage that we have, there are some other builders that build a spec home here and there, but pretty much our competition is builders that will do, they're kind of the good old boys. They're going to build 2 custom homes at a time, or they'll do 1 spec home at a time. So we really have no competition on a volume level. I mean, we do more spec homes than everybody else doing spec homes combined in the area. So, scaling our business with a business mindset rather than the small good old boy system is kind of allowed us to capitalize on the market.
All right, there's a lot of directions I want to take this, but we're going to start here. I mean, labor, materials we mentioned, but maybe let's speak about funding. I mean, maybe you don't have to give away, all the little details, but there's a serious amount of, even if you're doing entry level homes, there's a lot of cash out there. There's risk, which I'm sure you're working through. How are you working through the finance? Are you self-funding these? Do you have investment partners? How are you working from? Do you own the land acquisition, or do you land development, or these, develop lots? I mean, what does it look like from just 30,000 foot view?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I have no problem. I'm kind of an open book, so I'm happy to tell whatever. But it kind of similar to, like I say, don't have all your eggs in one basket. We're diversified in what we do, but we're also diversified in how we do specs also. So a lot of the times, yeah, we buy the land. We also develop land. Early to kind of backtrack, early on when I first started and had no money, right? I was like, man, if I could just build a spec, I could show someone we could make money doing this. And I didn't really have any way to get money. I'm a self-employed person. Being self-employed sometimes it's harder to get loans from the bank for investment stuff like that. So, kind of my story. I'll just be real honest with you.
Yeah, please.
I got lucky enough to build a home in Marysville. I don't know if you know where Marysville is, but
I do. Yeah,
it's our area is a huge ATV riding area. I mean, it's basically the ATV capital of the world. We have more miles of trails than anywhere else. So, some people from California that just vacation in this area wanted to build a home, and I was fortunate enough to win that job. And it was quite a nice home. It was a couple $1 million home, cabin for them. Nice home for us to build. And the guy that I was building the home for business, he's an investor, and I just having talked to him every day for 2 years, became really good friends with what was my client at the time. And I know you've become really good friends with some of your clients as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was really one of the first people to help me get off the ground building specs. And I actually was building 1 spec before him that I did with a partner. We just scratched together whatever money we could find, found some land, and we're able to do a really small, basic, simple, cheap spec. And I was talking to this client, hey, you ought to do a spec with me. It'd be fun. And he said, yeah, let's do it. And, I was thinking we're going to do a spec. Next thing turned around, we didn't do a spec. We did a 36 lot subdivision in homes. So it grew really rapidly from there. So having him on board has been good since then. We've been able to raise a lot of our own internal capital. And I think once people see success, I used to think money was the hardest thing to find to do this. But when people can see what you're doing successful, it turns out money's really not that hard to find. I get people all the time wanting to partner with us and do stuff. And honestly, we're limited by not that, but how fast we can build in this area.
Well, I mean, it must be. Once you have a recipe for success, as you mentioned, for sure, it's easy to put together pro formas, and I'm sure capital becomes maybe not a huge issue. Experience-wise, I mean, you get this project in Maryville. As you start moving into development, horizontal construction is very different than vertical. Did you have experience in that? I mean, learn as you go. Kind of what were the stepping stones there?
No experience at all. Like luckily the job was still profitable, but probably nowhere near as profitable as it should have been because it was learn on the job for sure. So luckily, we hired a company to do most of the horizontal development, and they were experienced and they were really solid on helping me through the process of what we needed to do. But it was a learning curve. I mean, I had never been to the city for zoning and approvals on the subdivision or done any of that before, and I just had to learn on the fly. Luckily, we were able to, and since then, we're like on our sixth subdivision right now, so we've done several more since that point in the area, and it's been a lot of success. I mean, that's actually another. We even just sell lots. I mean, we like to build the homes, but we have other people that have a different builder or a builder that wants to build a spec, and we sell them lots as well because in a rural area, you think there's a lot of land, so it's no big deal, but actually, most of the land's owned by farmers, and a lot of those farmers have no interest in their field turning into a subdivision. So it's actually really extremely hard to find land or to find lots in the area.
Well, yeah, I mean that's the issue. I mean, anywhere there could be government land, Indian land, like you see here in Phoenix, Native American land, I should say, and then you have other jurisdictions, and plus developed lots, right? I mean, where you're actually maybe on the grid per se, which a lot of people, if they're buying a home, want to be utilities. I mean, there's a lot of variables in there. I understand the value too, and just maybe the land flip, right? That you can do that, and for the client, what does it look like from a design perspective, right? Are you running your own design center options to coordinate all these selections? How are you working through that process just to get from A to B, or are these truly spec that you're self-designing all yourself?
Well, so I do have a team, of course, so I'm not personally designing them.
Well, sure, but
but I mean, and I'll tell you this too. In all honesty, I listen to your podcast and I love it. And like my desire would be for people to hire an interior designer. And I know like you don't do work unless they hire an interior designer.
Different product though, right? Yeah,
different product in different area. It doesn't really work that way. I mean, nobody here wants to hire a designer, and everyone's trying to go as cheap as they can go. So for our design aspect, I do have an in-house plans designer, so we do draw custom homes from that. And of course, we have at this point a pretty good portfolio of plans we can pull from to use. And then we do have a design center in our office where we bring in samples of things. So you could come to our office and pretty much make every selection that you want. If we don't have what you want, then we obviously have reps in other areas. We just travel, right? So we send a lot of clients to our reps in St. George or Cedar City or Provo. So it does involve traveling, but I mean, everyone that lives here is used to traveling. So it's really not that big of a deal for them to do. But, occasionally we have someone that doesn't want to travel. They work and they don't want to take the time off. And we have cabinet samples, countertop samples, flooring samples. I mean, we have everything in our office that you need to select in a home. And, we just have them meet with our project coordinators and they help them go through the process. And if they want to select what we have in the office, great. That's easy enough. If they want to show us a Pinterest picture, then we kind of tell them, that's not what we do. We can refer you to where our suppliers are, but that's going to kind of be on you. Unless you want to hire a designer. We've certainly tried to push them to hire designers, but we're certainly not super successful in that so far.
So my curiosity is, if you're doing 30 specs, are you allowing the flexibility where these 30 clients can make changes, or do you have a portion of those that you guys are speccing yourself? That way you can get it to market and, not have to deal with the client until until it's up for sale. The risk being you have the capital, right? You're carrying the cash until that deal is closed.
Right. I mean, to be honest, I don't know if we have a good answer because we kind of end up in all the above. Obviously, it's much easier for us as a builder to not have a client till the very end. So we prefer that we can build it, that they're not involved, and we can get the job complete and then sell the home when it's complete. I mean, the second someone buys a home, even if it's a spec home, we try to tell them, hey, this is like, we know you're going to buy this. We know we contracted with you, but technically we're still the owners till we close at the end. We can't have you on the project. It's not safe. We need you to stay away, but inevitably they drive by every day, right? They're looking at it every day. And so they see a 2x4 laying in the mud or something, and they're calling me mad about the 2x4 in the mud. So I found, hey, look, it's going to be okay. We'll get your home built. So it's a lot easier for us to sell the home when it's complete. But just like to the point you make, when someone does come along and I got a half-built spec home and they want to buy it, I have a hard time turning them away because I'd rather lock the deal up than take the risk of not selling it. So we've certainly made those deals in the past. One thing that we've tried to do though is just have a steady volume in different stages. So we try to start a new house at least every month, if not a couple a month. And so if someone comes along and they want that specific house, we just try to steer them towards one that's on the complete end. And then we don't have that as often anymore. But we do all the above. I wish I had a more clear answer for you, but we're kind of in whatever it takes to get the sale.
No, I understand. I mean, you want to make sure you have bird in hand, right? I mean, there's value to having a sell, even though you may have to deal with that 2x4 in the mud, as you mentioned. What range of square foot of these homes? I'd imagine they'll have basements. Are you finishing the basement? What does that look like from a customer perspective?
Yeah. So I mean, we again, same thing. We try to diversify that too because we have different clients. A lot of them are young families trying to move back home, finish college, want to live in this area because they grew up here and love it. But conversely, we have a lot of older clients too that are either downsizing, want a smaller home, want a single level home, if when I say people are moving from California or outside of Utah to this area, I would say the majority of those people are retirees or close to retiring, where they're done with the city and they're for a simpler life and they're looking for something different. So we have a lot of single level homes. We have a lot of basement homes. We build from, I have 1,000 square foot. Our first spec we ever did was 1,600 square foot, and we've built that same plan 20 times now, and it sells great. It's a simple home, but it's 1,600 square feet seems simple, but just like COVID and prices keep increasing, we're always looking at how to make a home more affordable. And the only way to do that is make it more simple. So we actually basically have said, okay, look, people want a home, and I'm sure they want the luxury home with all the tile and everything, but they can't afford it. And so I need to build them what they can afford. So we actually basically designed a Boise Cascade style, rectangle box home as simple as we possibly could to get the price down as far as we can. So that's about 1,000 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath home. It's very small to fit all that in there. So our smallest plan is 1,000 square foot, and we build up to about 2,500 square foot on a main level with a basement. So we do get to a pretty sizable, nice home as well, and all in between. We do a lot of townhomes or fourplexes as well. I mean, we'll do anything we can. I mean, that's one way to make the thing cheaper. If you can find a lot that you can lot split and duplex, that brings the lot cost down. That brings the cost of the home down, and that makes it more affordable for people. So budget's obviously in our area. I mean, for what you do, budget may not always be the most important thing. For what we do, budget almost overwhelmingly is always, the client's number one concern.
Well, it's all relative in the sense that, yeah, our budgets may be different, but trust me, my clients are obsessed about budget. I mean, I've actually lost projects because of budget, which is kind of funny to think about when you probably see what our square foot is. But the point being is that, yeah, there's always, I don't want to say limitations, but comfort, right, that the client has, and driven by market and employment. I mean, there's a lot of variables that go into that. From your side, Dustin, I mean, as you're speaking through this, it's fascinating to me in the sense that, like, thinking about labor for you, are you self-performing some of the work? Are you subcontracting all out? What does that look like from just a labor pool being in a small rural area?
Yeah. So what I would say is kind of like you, we attempt to not self-perform any work. Keyword attempt. Sometimes there's limited subcontractors and we have to step in and do a few things, but I obviously have all my superintendents, project managers are more than capable. All their experience has been in construction their whole life. So if we've got to step in and frame a closet or do some hardware, do some trim, we can do it and we do it, whatever it takes to get it done. But we actually are just a general contracting service. So we're just trying to sell the service side of it, and we use subcontractors. And there's a couple different directions we can talk about there, but that's one advantage we've had is our competition is, typically a lot of, I'm going to be careful, they might listen to this podcast, but they're just, they're not like really, and I don't think they're gonna be offended when I say this. They're just not real forward, like business minded people.
Yeah. I was just say business minded people.
They're happy to build a house or two. That's what they love to do. And they build beautiful homes. They're great at what they do, but they have no desire to build more than one or two at a time. And so there was an opportunity to capitalize on that market here. And so when we deal with a client, we really sell our service side of it. Hey, we use Builder Trend. we have communication tools we use. We have project managers. We have project coordinators. We understand communication is really important. Kind of like what you say, everything's relative. So even though these houses are probably a lot less expensive than what you build, they're still the most expensive thing this client's ever going to buy, and it's super important to them. So we really
Right.
try to sell our service side of it. I think we build a good quality home. We try to build a good quality home. Some of these other generals build a good quality home, and I think where we really excel and achieve is our service level is a lot higher because we've invested into what it takes to be at that level on that side of it. So
Do you ever run into issues with labor? I mean, are there any specific trade partners that have been more of a challenge for you?
yeah, and that's a challenge. Sorry, forgot where we were going with that. I got
No, you're good. You're good.
uh,
You answered my question first and foremost, just about
I think
that.
for sure the subcontractor pool is an interesting thing here too. So there's obviously limited subs. So if we're getting more and more to where we're not really bidding against other contractors, right? I think people are starting to see the value of what we bring and the ability to have less stress maybe in a process that's better. And so a lot of times we're getting referred or we're getting a client that we don't bid against another general. They just hire us. But in the cases that we do bid against another general, it's kind of an interesting conversation because it's like, there's four plumbers, right? There's four plumbers. I know them all. So we're all going to get the same bid from the same plumbers. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, and we're cost plus open book. So we'll get a bid from all four and we'll show you all four. We really, at the end of the day, here's what we charge for our service and here's what we offer, and whatever they charge for their fee and whatever they offer, that's really what you're deciding, because the subs are going to be typically the same subs that they use. There might be more than four plumbers. There might be six or seven, but it's fairly limited. There is challenges with it for sure. I think our challenges stem from being so small. When I first started, like, I'm fairly young. I'm 36 years old. I guess I'm getting older, but I still think
You're young.
but when I first started, because there's limited subs, I feel like they have a lot more control than the generals do in the area, right? Like, you hire a drywaller and he's doing the drywall for all 8, 9, 10 general contractors, whatever it may be. And so, when I first started, I'm like, hey, we want to do this texture. We don't do that texture. It's not the texture we do. This is the texture we do. And I'm like, oh, well, the client wants this texture. Well, you're going to have to tell them they're not getting that texture. And, so that's kind of a really unique thing. I'm like, that's not how I want to build. That's not how we want to do it. So luckily, as we've grown and we've gotten bigger, we're the largest by volume contractor in the area in Central Utah. And so we've been able to start to sway that market and to push those subcontractors to do the things that we want them to do versus necessarily the way they've done it their whole life. But that is a challenge. It's not always easy to do. When you've done something for 25 years and it's worked, and then you got some young kid come along, tell you we're not doing it that way anymore. It's not always easy change, but obviously we build good relationships with them. I think relationships are really important. We take them to lunch and we explain what we're trying to do. And I think they've started to see our vision of what we try to bring in, different product, higher quality product, different design. And I think that's started to change the market here and made that easier. But as far as, like, if you're talking trade partners availability during COVID, I think same challenges that probably you had, but I would say now it's kind of freed up a little bit and we're rolling pretty steady. I think scheduling's key. I've found that most of our subs don't really run their schedule very well, and that's where Builder Trend has helped us. We try to run their schedule for them. So I don't know what they're doing for other generals, but we try to dominate their schedule a little bit and then run it for them so we can run our jobs smoothly and on time.
Do you feel with your education, your background, just kind of your forward thinking, what advantage do you feel you have, being in a small market?
I would say, yeah, there's limited, if any, that have been really business minded. They're all just most of the subs and most of the generals that are here are because that's what they've done, right? Like a framing sub. Why are you a framing sub? Well, I framed my whole life and I just want to start my own business, but he's not really has no business background, right? He just started framing. And that's kind of the case across the board with everybody here. And I have a lot of background too. My dad was a builder, my uncle, cousin's a builder. So that's, where I ended up. But I went to school in business and, care a little bit more on that end of it. So I think that's really propelled an advantage for us, being willing to be forward thinking and to present something different. Even though we're a small area, social media has changed the world. We're rural, but we still have the internet. I'm on this podcast. I have some friends in Salt Lake, and they always joke like, "You got internet down there?" Yeah, we have. And so I think that this community was begging for different
Yeah.
opportunity than what it had, because all these wives and moms, and it can be men too, but typically it's the wives that are looking on Instagram and seeing the cool homes, or going down to the parade of homes in St. George. They
Hmm.
wanted that. They want something different, and it wasn't really being offered here. So I think it was just right market for us at the right time, and it really helped us boom and burst onto the scene. There's a few generals that are kind of brand new, that are more forward thinking like me, that are just starting to grow, which I think is just going to help us to keep pushing that trend in the area. So I think it's helping us catch up to date with what the rest of the world's doing. We're always 10 years behind here.
Well, it doesn't seem like you're 10 years behind. In a lot of ways, you're ahead of us. You know what's interesting about the competitive advantage your organization? You mentioned you do commercial too, and kind of the funny point is you said Aurora is down to a pop machine, so we know there's no commercial in Aurora.
No, no,
You know, what does that look like? What are some of the commercial product that you've dabbled in, if you don't mind sharing?
yeah, no, I don't mind at all. I think commercial is challenging, like you say, because it's not a big area. I mean, if you were building schools per se, you're going to build one school every 10 years. I mean, if that's what you
Mhm.
did, you're going out of business. So you can't limit what you do in commercial. You have to have a wide variety. We've been pretty lucky to get in with a few companies that have really helped us do quite well. Probably our biggest client commercially is Intermountain Health. I don't know if you're familiar with Intermountain.
Mhm. Yeah, I am. Yeah, yeah.
So there's only two contractors in all of central Utah that are screened and go through the process to build for Intermountain Health, and we're one of them. So we have several projects for them right now that we're doing. We're doing a big kitchen remodel in Richfield, but we go to Delta, Fillmore. People probably don't know, but these are hour and a half away from Richfield, and we just do remodel work or addition work on the hospitals, and that's really helped us. That's kind of been our core to our commercial division, doing that kind of work. But we've built some hotels. We right now we're in the middle of an addition on a vet clinic. We actually did one for him before. We're on our second addition for him. We've done a lot of work at USG. There's a USG plant in Sigurd, gypsum and your sheetrock and mud. So we do a lot of work for them. But it varies. I mean, it varies pretty widely what's available and what you can do. And so we just look everywhere and anywhere we can to find it and do it when it's available. The one thing I have that obviously I do have a team that's a commercial team, and I have a team that's a residential team, but my commercial team all has experience in the residential side. So if we slow down commercially, we have the ability to pull those superintendents and project managers over to residential if need be, and vice versa. So when you're a small community, you got to be on your toes all the time, ready to jump to the next thing depending on what's coming. Luckily, for the last 3 years, we've not done that. I mean, it's been commercial division and residential division. It's been divided. We haven't had to cross over, but we're prepared to if that day comes.
It's amazing. I mean, how did you get in, doing the hospital work? As you mentioned, there's only two builders qualified. What did that pre-qual process look like for you?
It's pretty intense. I mean, they don't just want anyone bidding on their work. They want it pretty thorough. So they're looking at your financials. They're looking at your experience level. And quite frankly, I don't know how. It's kind of like the horizontal development work. Never done it before. We just filled out the application and somehow we lucked our way through. But hopefully they're pretty happy with us now. But I don't know if we were qualified or not when we did it. We just went for it. Luckily for me, and this is probably a truth more so in small towns than big cities, is a lot of people, right? So the at the local hospital here, the head of maintenance, who's also over the construction, is actually one of my really good friends from high school. So he kind of is the one that keyed me into filling out the application. Obviously, he doesn't get to make that decision. That goes clear up, to the corporate. But it helped me to get in, and we've built homes for like 6 or 7 different hospital employees. So they already knew us pretty well there from that end. So that's one advantage of being in a small market is, I mean, there's no need for advertising at all. I get called from Angie's leads and all these people all the time. And I'm like, dude, I'm sorry, but you're not going to do any good. Everybody already knows who we are. So,
I think that lead generation is interesting because, yeah, to your point though, what's interesting about the rural market, and maybe that's one of the advantages for you, is to your point, there's a lot of friends and colleagues, and everyone knows you. And so if you've invested the time in systems and operations, as you've done build a trend, and knowing your business, it puts you, that referral pipeline is much easier than maybe some like here that, even as much as we've tried to have a big name, there are a lot of people that have no idea who AFT is, right?
right.
They have no idea who I am, whereas they may know you and open doors that what others may not have.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a little bit of a really positive thing to be in a small market, but I think it's also scary, like you said.
Yeah. If you don't do a good job,
You don't do a good job, everyone knows. Everyone knows, and so it's critical to do a good job and make the client happy, whatever it takes. And I mean, we're not perfect. And one thing I love about your podcast is most of your guests are quite open about the challenges of construction and what sometimes is the ugly side of it, and we have that too. And so for us, it's important for us, even though we're still going to have those challenges, is to mitigate those and to set the expectations. And by the end of the job, have them happy. I think one of the keys to that is the two big things every person in the world thinks a general is over budget and over schedule, right? So we really, really try to work hard on keeping that budget intact and that schedule intact. And if the budget's gonna be blown, we want to make it super clear on the front end right when it's happening why. Typically it's because of adding stuff, and we just try to remind them of that. Uh, but I think communication through the whole process has really helped us to have a super positive client relationship uh, with our clients. Sometimes we get into personal stuff with them too because it's so small. I mean, we've had clients that have gone through medical situations and we've known and we've helped them out a little bit financially or schedule wise for that situation. Or otherwise, in a bigger community, you may not know that's going on if they're not offering that information up. And so that's been another benefit of the small market is we see what is happening to them too, and we try to capitalize on doing the right thing for them uh, through the process.
what is the from a permit perspective, regulation, entitlements, what does that look like? Just how difficult is it for you to pull permits?
Not difficult at all. I listen to your podcast and a lot of these city people, and I know California is really bad. My investment partner that I built the house in Marysville for, he's in California. He builds a few homes there, and he tells me about he's got one right on the coast in Redondo Beach, and the coastal
Yeah.
and all that. It was years, and I mean, if you told me, Brad, you wanted a home here in Richfield, and you had the plans right now, then we had the bid, and you were okay, we could be breaking ground in 2 weeks. So
That's incredible.
it's really nice. It's small enough that things just go right through. Now, I mean, they don't always go through. We do have a building department. We do have, obviously code, and our plans do go through review. Sometimes they catch something, we have to change it. But I mean, at this point, they know who we are and we know what we're doing, and so it's usually a pretty slick and simple process for us. So that's one thing I do like about rural communities is typically people in rural communities, not to be political, but they don't really like government control, right? So it's minimized. We don't have as much of that to deal with, which is nice. Like I mean, I'll just give you an example. That first subdivision I did, to be honest with you, I got in trouble because we had started the process and we're doing the job and we had no SWIP. I didn't even know what SWIP was. I'm like, what's so I had when we're building a house, we don't really worry about SWIP too much down here, but for the subdivision, it turns out I did need to learn how to deal with that. So
They want you to control erosion, I guess.
yeah,
There.
yep, exactly.
It's so funny. I mean, just in theory, I mean, it's, I only laugh because I think about how many mistakes I made throughout my career, right? Just stuff, you don't know what you don't know. And you go in and, you're ambitious, you're blind in a way, which, there's value to that because you're not scared. And, maybe knowing everything, you'd be like more hesitant to take that risk. And here you are now, Dustin, and you're learning not only what you've applied to your business. I think what's unique and something I want to ask you about is, you've actually been asked and you go speak at other events and teach others about investing in spec homes. How did that door open for you to not only focus on your business, but now start, looking at the industry as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, I think that happened for sure more on the spec end of it, how to profit through building spec homes. And so we've started to try to figure out how to teach people about that process. I've got a pretty good system down with my people here now, how we do it and what we do. We're working on spreading to other markets too. We're actually starting down in St. George to build some spec homes as well down there. And so there's a lot of people that don't realize what's here. I think if you look on social media, you see, or even on TV, HDTV or whatever, you see everybody flipping houses, right? There's
Hmm.
there's thousands of shows on how to make money flipping houses. There's thousands of Instagrams on here's how you make money flipping houses, and there's really far less of that in new construction. And to me, new construction is way less risky. I mean, I know if I know what I'm buying the land for, I already know what my building costs are. I know what my costs are to build a home, and I can easily look up what the house is going to sell for on the market. Whereas you buy a house you're going to flip, there's so many unknowns. You don't even really know what your costs are at that time. So we really wanted to promote sustainability, or maybe a safer way of making money that you don't have to flip, that you can build spec homes. And so we started just teaching people and talking about it. And it kind of happened really organically. I'd say I don't think we made some good big marketing push. We just happened to start talking to some of the right people that were interested in having us speak at some of their events and teach at some of their events. And so we've started to travel and teach at those events. And we're just 100% honest and open. Here's how we found this land. Here's how we funded this deal. And we fund them all, every possible, like I was telling you earlier, every possible way. We have hard money lenders, business
Hmm.
partners. We use banks. We do it all. We have creative funding. So there's no limit to what we do on that end. And so we were lucky to just get involved in teaching people, and teaching at a few seminars, the processes of how to do that, how to make money doing it. And it's really grown. I've started an Instagram, trying to push it. I'm not very good at that Instagram yet. We're not very good at posting on it, but we're going to get better. So that's kind of been fun. I think I've always enjoyed, just like this podcast, I always enjoy reaching out and talking. I'd say my strength in life is talking. Maybe that's not a very good strength, but that's what it is. So if I can tell people about things I'm passionate about, and talk to them about it, I can do that all day long, and be happy. So the more I can get in front of people and talk about what I'm passionate about, the happier I am.
What do you feel, maybe looking at your own career and as you advise others, what are some of the common mistakes people make when they go into the speculative market?
I think probably that's a great question. I got to think about that one for a minute. What the challenges are? Certainly, it's not always easy, right? I mean, I think like you're saying, there's a lot of unknowns. I'm not the first person to say this, but I've lost a lot of money making the wrong decisions that I've kind of paid for an education in building spec homes. And I'd say that's so. If you had a business partner or someone, or I guess that's what I'd say. If you had training of someone that's done it before you, don't reinvent the wheel, because that's what I did. I didn't pay for any classes or go to any trainings. I just tried to do it myself, and I made so many mistakes that otherwise could have been easily avoided had I just paid for a course or followed someone else that had done it, or found some advice from someone. And so I think that's kind of what we're trying to offer. Hey, don't make these mistakes that we made. And I think some big mistakes are overpaying for land. You find a lot, it's
Hmm.
a great deal. If you overpay for that land, it's really hard to make a profit. So I think key is, if I was to tell someone just the quick basic steps, not getting into the deep details of it, to me, number one thing is find a simple plan, get the price, bid it out, get the price of that. Once you know what that's going to cost to build, get on Zillow or an MLS site and look at what a house that size new construction is going to sell for. And now you know your margin. Now you know your margin of what you can pay for a lot. Uh, don't go buy a lot first. That's probably the worst mistake you can make.
It's funny you bring that up because earlier in the conversation you're speaking about now, and I don't want to say recipe, but you have this amazing system, right, Dustin? As you're going through and building 30 specs a year, you have this process, even at 2,500 square feet, and you use the term box, but it's not a box, right? There's layers to it, and the way you lay out the house, and point being is that when you're young, I mean, you bring up the land example, that going into the speculative market, land, you know, can affect the upside to some extent, and what it could comp for, and building costs that play a role. But the construction type's really interesting because as I've gotten more experience in my career, like I'm sure you have, I can look at a plan, and depending the way the architecture's going, whether it's modern, whether it's traditional, ceiling heights and different details, where the cost drivers are, and you just when you're young, you don't realize that that can impact cost, and how when if you have to bring in scaffolding and keep that up for a certain amount of time, how that affects your labor cost, and all these different variables that go into building.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We recently 3 months ago hired a new designer that's working for us, and I think she hates me right now because she's trying to design these specs, and I'm like, nope, not that ain't gonna work. That ain't gonna work.
Yeah.
She's designing off of looks, like you say, and she might think she finds a cheap fixture, a cheap beam, or whatever. Even still, I'm like, you don't understand the structural work that goes into being able to put that beam in there, and we don't need it. We're not putting it in there. That is in some cases. In some cases, we do put some nicer stuff in there and make a nicer home. But on the base level, yeah, we're trying to keep those costs down as much as possible. That's also a challenge. From earlier we were talking about, if you sell a spec house partway through a build, which we've done, then you have the client coming in and wanting to make a change, and sometimes what they think is a small change is not a small change. So hey, we just want to change this countertop color over here. Well, we already bought 3 slabs for this home, and we can't just go buy another slab because you want a different color in this bathroom. It doesn't work. And so if we sell one halfway through, we have to have quite a thorough conversation beforehand that, hey, this is what's selected and this is what it is. There's no change in it, unless you want to pay a lot more money, because it's not that easy to make changes. But yeah, to your point, same for me. I can look at a set of plans and pretty well know closely what it's going to cost us to build based on how those plans are drawn, or what they're wanting to put into it. And for spec building, no one has a say in that. For the custom build side of it, that's a whole new challenge in itself, trying to get a client what they want, but also what they can afford.
How does timeline play a role in profitability when you're doing your specs?
Oh yeah, that's everything. I mean, because every bit of money we use on a spec, whether it is from a hard money or a partner, or even in-house money we use, we have to look at that money, all of it, as if it could be making money elsewhere, right? So all money in these homes has an interest rate, that is accruing monthly. And so every month that we own that home longer than we need to costs us more money. So we do have a timeline on our build time on those. And if we don't hit it, we're looking why we didn't hit it. Our subcontractors know, they know if we're building a spec or what we're doing, and they know when it's a spec that time is extremely important to us. Not to say that it's not in the custom world. I think it is important there too, because clients are paying interest on construction loans and things there as well. But I think that there's just more involved in a custom build, to where it takes longer because there's more communication going back and forth. In our specs, I mean, we have packages already built out by our designer, right? That this is the package we're going to put together. So when me or one of my business partners want to build a spec, we just use package B, use package C, and it's already selected. It all goes out in the selections and build a trend right away. It's all predetermined and pre-decided to speed up the time frame of that. It's all pre-ordered. Everything that we're putting in them is stuff that we know is readily available. We're not buying exclusive, unique things, because that we don't want long lead times on our products. We want to be able to get them there. We do have some warehouse space, so we do order some stuff early and bring it in early, just to make sure that we don't mess up our lead time on that. We're doing that a little more right now because of tariff potential than maybe we've done in the past, just trying to be prepared for that. But yeah, I mean, I think speed and lead times and the speed of the build is very crucial in a spec house.
What's your typical build cycle? When you break ground to completion, what's it look like?
So those basic ones, 1,000 square feet to 1,600 square feet, we build in 6 months. We can sometimes beat that in about 5. But right now, based on the subcontractor base we have, it's about 6 months.
Yeah. It's tough. I mean, the subcontract, and that's why I asked. I mean, going back to subcontractors, do you see? I mean, a lot of them are. Do you see them aging out? Do you have a lot of young talent coming in?
No, it's
What do you foresee happening in the next 10 years?
it's a scary question because yeah, we do have some new guys coming in and they're great, but there is a lot of aging workforce for sure in this area, and there are some new coming in, but I don't think there's as many new coming in as there are going to be old going out, and I think that's going to be an extremely interesting dynamic move. And I don't think that's just Richfield. I think in general across the United States, right? There's labor force shortages, less people wanting to be in the trades, and the only way we're going to get more people in the trades is to make it more lucrative. So our cost of tradesmen is going to go up, which is in turn going to drive up the cost of housing even higher. So I mean, I get asked all the time, like, is housing prices coming down? Is housing prices going down? And I always tell them the same thing, like, I don't have a crystal ball, I can't promise you, but every indicator that I can see in the long term, there's no way that prices are coming down. I mean, cost of materials is just only going to go up, and cost of labor is for sure 100% only going to go up. So yeah, we have some great young trade partners, but that is certainly a concern that we've looked at. We've considered trying to do some stuff in house to make up for that as that comes. But again, same problem. I mean, for me to take on a concrete crew, I've got to have a concrete foreman that can run that crew because I can't go out there and run them daily. So it's pivotal to either find the right people or have the right subs move in. We surprisingly, you'd be surprised. We do get subs. So Salt Lake's 2 hours from us. St. George is 2 hour drive from us. But we have subs that are willing to drive from that distance and do work here. So
Really?
when we are short, we'll call a framer in from St. George and they'll come up and frame it. And competitively, too. I mean, this is maybe not a question you asked, but if you're okay, I'm going to answer it anyway.
Please, yeah.
One unique thing about Richfield, it's not cheaper to hire a sub here than it is from St. George. And I think
Really? Wow. I guess, yeah, you play an inflation tax, of them.
you pay, well, what it comes down to is they're all small crews, right? So if I
Yeah.
have a drywaller, he's probably got 2 or 3 employees and he's wanting to make a good living, right? So he's basing his fee of what he's going to charge on what he wants to pay himself as an owner of a company. Well, we go to St. George and we hire an owner. Well, he wants to make good money, but he's got 50 employees, right, that make substantially less than what he wants to make. So he can send up that crew cheaper than what we're hiring the subcontractor here. Every subcontractor we have self-performs the work too. I'm sure that's maybe not the case for all of yours where
Right.
your subcontractors are business owners. Ours are on the job doing the work with their crew.
Yeah, and that makes a big difference to your point. I mean, if they're self-performing, it's going to be a little bit different. And it's hard. I will be honest too. I've had some of my trades self-perform. It is actually hard to schedule them and get a hold of them because, in fairness to them,
Their work.
they have their bag. Yeah, they're working. They have their bags on. They're just out on their phone or behind their computers. So you have to really be sensitive to that. Not to take this again. When you think about just homes getting cheaper, I think it's impossible. The reason being is not just from labor and land and everything else, but like the requirements, right? I mean, you think about, for us, blower door tests, fire sprinklers are mandatory. The lighting, we have to do the energy efficiency of these builds. Like, our government, right, wrong, and different, they're making homes that have a lot more requirements. And with that is a cost, right? Just like vehicles, you look at vehicles today, vehicles are not getting cheaper.
No.
At the same time, you're kind of forced into buying vehicles with a ton of options. Is you can't go buy a vehicle without a stereo or without automatic power windows. Like we had like hand cranks as a kid. Like, those options aren't there. I remember my first truck, I lived in San Diego. My dad's like, you don't need AC. You don't need to pay for that upgrade. You live in San Diego, roll your window down. Little unbeknownst to him, I'd move to Phoenix and pay the price for that later with no AC in my truck. But you could actually buy a truck without air conditioning. Well, and that's the thing. The requirements of vehicles and homes are a lot more upgraded than what we knew to be the case, 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah, here in rural Utah, we're upset that you can't buy a manual transmission vehicle anymore.
It's shockingly, that's actually a lot of people. Both my brothers have manual transmissions, so one of the reasons is their kids can't take their car because they don't know how to drive it.
That's true. Yeah, they can't drive it anymore. Yeah. But no, I mean, I agree. Even here, I think we're probably a little slower than the cities, but certainly same regulation flows down to us, right? I mean, a lot of it's state regulation, and the IRC codes getting updated every 3 years, and it's not getting simpler; it's getting more complex to build. And I mean, there's certain things that uh, I don't want to say too much, but there's certain things we're not beholden to that you probably are. But
Yeah.
and we, even though we know they're really code, we're just there's not the manpower to go and do them here. But that's starting to change too. I mean, it's getting stricter and stricter for us, and so costs are going up from regulation as well. So there's no arrow pointing down at all. The costs are only going up. Anyone that wants a home, I tell them get a home, buy a home now. It'll be more money.
Yeah, it's so true. And the trades part is interesting because I was just having this conversation. A lot of us have been following along about, you know, I was just speaking in Orlando. I was just at an event out there, and one of the designers who was there, they have children attending NYU, and not to throw NYU under the bus, but bottom line is they're spending 48,000 a semester for their child to go to school at NYU. When you factor in the amount of school and housing and living in Manhattan, that's 100,000. I mean, for a bachelor's degree, it's 400 grand.
Oh,
I mean, I'm just sitting here in my mind thinking that how's that sustainable? 400,000 for a bachelor's degree. I'm like, now these kids, like, that's why I tell everyone, I have a couple nephews that have gone into the trades. It's like going to plumbing, going to structural steel, going to framing, going to trim carpentry, mechanical. I mean, the opportunity to forego college, and you and I both did college, but I tell people now I probably wouldn't be a general, and maybe I shouldn't say that on the podcast, but I'd go into the trades, right? And learn my trade, and you go into that. And I just think there's a lot of opportunity that I didn't know about, and many others. And hopefully we can spread that word more about the value of the trades and working with your hands and learning, in addition to that, how to run a successful business.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, even that $400,000 degree, I don't know your friend's degree, but a lot of those degrees, aren't worth very much. I have some cousins that are in computer programming, and that you look at computer programming, what you could make 10 years ago versus what the salaries are today. They've gone down significantly because there's so many more computer programmers available, whereas the trades have only gone up and up. I actually just recently did invest into an electrician company. I have an electrician that wanted to start his own business, didn't have the backing and the funding, and so we kind of partnered up. He does the work, and then I do all the business end of the business. And to me, that's the best investment. Like I'd rather invest into that than I would the stock market, because trade value is only going to increase over time.
So what keeps you up at night?
40 houses at a time, I guess. Yeah, I used to keep me up every night, but I feel like over time it's gotten better. I mean, I've learned to just, as it comes, it'll go. But I've really worked on trying to sleep better than I have in the past. But certainly I get excited about business, and I always got another idea in my mind, and that keeps me up because I get excited about starting something new.
That's amazing. So what's next on the horizon? Like, what's upcoming and exciting for you?
For in the business world, exciting. Like I think I mentioned earlier, we're kind of moving and starting a division in St. George, which is 2 hours south of us. So we're kind of expanding our company, which is super exciting to us.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's keeps me up at night also. So it's both. I mean, I'm 36, but I got a white beard and no hair, so it's self-inflicted, I'm sure. But
do you plan on doing kind of the same scope, or are you trying to get into maybe more custom stuff? What does St. George's market look like?
Uniquely, it's probably going to be a little bit of all the same stuff, because we've already talked to Intermountain Health, and they're happy to have us bid on some stuff down there. So there's no reason we shouldn't. But one main factor for me is, I built my own custom home. I know you're building yours right now, Brad. And I did some stuff in this home that typically isn't done in Richfield. I mean, I'm not trying to brag, but to give example for anyone, I know you have a lot of builders that listen, but we put a sports court in under our garage. So we had to do suspended slabs, and I wanted the big glass wall. So we had to bring in some big beams and some unique engineering to it. And some stuff like that is really challenging for a build aspect. And I really, really enjoy it. And we don't get to do enough of that. My dream is to build a higher end, home, even if it's a spec, and sell it. And there's no way on earth that I'm going to build a $2 million+ spec in Richfield. I'd go broke.
Yeah.
And so, in St. George,
it's nothing.
There's the opportunity for me to build, $4 or $5 million home there and easily sell it. And so I kind of maybe less for business sense. I hope it makes business sense, but more for my enjoyment of building nice product. We needed to expand our scope of where we were going, and so that's kind of the reason. One reason why we're kind of moving to that horizon.
Well, I think what's interesting is you've spent the time, you built the systems, organization, you have the knowledge, the credibility, and now that you have that operation in hand, it allows you to go expand into a different market. It allows you to maybe expand into a different clientele, and you're up for the task. You're ready to go. I mean, it says a lot about the career growth to this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot to be said about building systems, right? I mean, you guys talk about that all the time on the podcast, and I think we've taken the time and taken the hits and learning curve to build the right systems and processes, and we have those. And luckily, I have a really good project manager that's wanting to move to St. George anyway. That's going to move down there and kind of spearhead things for me. So we'll just go down there and keep our same systems and processes in place and hope for the best.
What do you do for fun?
I do too much for fun, to be honest with you. I coach 2 high school sports. I coach football. 2, yeah. So I'm assistant coach for football, and then I'm a head wrestling coach.
Oh my gosh,
it keeps me really busy. I've actually, and I'm going to do it, but I've wanted to come to the Coalition Summit that you've put on, and so far every single time you've put it on, I've had to be at a camp or in a thing. So it's kind of hosed me.
Even Omaha? You can't come to Omaha in June?
I'm looking to see if I can come to Omaha. I really want to get out there. Plus, I want to come to Builder Trend headquarters because obviously,
yeah, you need to.
So,
yeah,
I do a lot of sports. We do a lot of outdoor stuff. Obviously, a lot of we have a razor, go on that a lot. Do a lot of hiking, biking, and then I got 3 young kids, 2, 6, and 10, and they're all involved in sports. So I feel like we're just running around with our heads cut off, honestly.
Yeah, it's amazing. 2 high school sports. Man, Dustin, that's legit. That is.
It's not very smart. I started
kids in a business, yeah.
I started as a wrestling coach, and my assistant wrestling coach is the head football coach, and he somehow talked me into it. And I have no idea to this day how my wife said yes.
Bless her heart, man. That's awesome for you guys.
Yeah, it's fun.
You've been incredible, Dustin. I mean, I appreciate the friendship and getting to know you over the years and like what you've done in your market. I mean, I don't think some people live in other, we laugh about the flyover states, right? You fly over in these little towns all throughout the U.S., but that so much happens there, and you really are in a small market. I know that market personally, and it's very impressive. So, I think in a lot of ways it's more impressive than what a lot of us have done in, these big metro cities. So kudos to you, Dustin.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate being on and being able to talk to you about it.
Yeah. Well, as we close, where can our listeners find you?
Yeah. So we're on Instagram, Nielsen.contracting, Nielsen, Nielsen.contracting on Instagram. And we have a website as well, NielsenContractingUtah.com. And so look us up in either of those places.
Man, it's been amazing. Well, appreciate you, Dustin. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it.
If you get value from the show, please support us by giving a 5-star rating and review on whatever platform you listen to. And I also have a favor to ask. We've had some incredible guests that come on and share their wisdom, their knowledge about their business. So if you have friends or family members that could benefit from those episodes, please share it with them, as well as any other business owners that you're networking with that could get value from the podcast or certain episodes. Please share those as well. Again, subscribe, make sure you're following. Any questions that you have, topics. We've had listeners reach out about certain guests that we should have on the show. Again, brad.l@aftconstruction.com. Email me for topics to address, guests that we should have on, and even if you think you'd be a great guest for the show. So again, thank you for all your support, and we'll see you next time.